Good morning to all of you. Um, my honor to inaugurate the chief guest, Dr. Mukesh Mahaling, the Honorable Minister of Electronics and Information Technology, Health and Family Welfare, Parliamentary Affairs, Government of Odisha. Our esteemed Vice Chancellor on the dais, Professor Shobita Acharya of Utkal University, Bhubaneswar. Professor B.P. Sanjay, whom you have just heard, Senior Professor of Communication and Media Studies, Manipal Institute of Communication, Mangaluru. Upendra Padhi, Chairman of the Conclave, Manoranjan Panda on the dais, the dignitaries, the experts in media communication, the scholars, the students, and of course, in absentia, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sharanjit Singh, and our godlike, parent-like founder, Professor Uchut Shamanta. They could not be present here because of another assignment, which they are attending at the present moment. Just before I came up on the dais, on the lectern, B.P. Sanjay ji was speaking about the notion of democratization of knowledge. This is exactly from where I would begin in the short 2 or 3 sentences that I would be speaking. There was a time in the Western world called the time of enlightenment with a capital E. It actually took place during the 17th century. With the coming up, towards the end of the 17th century, with the coming up of sciences, the Royal Society. So people from that time onwards started thinking that knowledge is a private property, is a provincial property. That is exactly what P.P. Sanjay sir was trying to make out, and he put it in a brilliant manner. Now that particular notion of monopolies of knowledge continued in the Western world with the kind of marginalization of the South, with the marginalization and virtual peripheralization of the Eastern countries, a history that we have all encountered and had suffered. It has become an archive now. Until the First World War and the Second World War, the two most significant and the heinous things that had taken place in the 20th century. Once the World War took place, some of the most thinking, intellectual, and sensitive people of the Western world turned back and said to themselves, is this what enlightenment is? Is this why we have monopolized knowledge? What is knowledge actually yielding? What is it eliciting? Eliciting violence, eliciting discontent, eliciting intolerance across the world, teaching people how to kill each other? Down with that kind of knowledge. We don't require that kind of knowledge. The entire intellectual world in the West started sitting back and changing their mindset. A new revolution in the knowledge system began, not only in the form of media studies, but also in the form of breaking down the monopolistic, the hegemonic institutions who had actually thought of knowledge their private property. So democratization started taking place from that time. And one of the major ingredients, major instruments through which democratization was possible was, of course, the media, and more so by the digital media. A famous philosopher whom many of you have already read and learned, called Benedict Anderson. He wrote a book called Imagined Community. And he referred in this particular book, The Imagined Community, of two very important media subjects. One is, of course, media. The other is the novel. In fact, he actually spoke about newspaper and the novel. That created the notion of the imagined community. In a reductive manner, I would actually explain what this imagined community means from Benedict Anderson's point of view is, suppose in the morning you have taken up the Morning Herald over here, or you have taken up the Times of India over here. The same newspaper is being read some 10,000 miles away in another place in a digital form, or even in a print form. You were perhaps reading the New York Times over here at the same time, or much earlier in the day, a citizen in New York had been reading that particular paper. So this is the imagined community. You are contributing, subscribing to the same sets of news, the same sets of ideas that two persons in two different parts of the world, without knowing each other, had been actually sharing. That is why Benedict Anderson, way back after the Second World War, had made these two things very significant developments with a critical point of view. So print media was available at that point of time, but not digital media as such. But more and more digital media came into being. Benedict Anderson's notion of democratization and the expanse of the imagined community not only became virtual, but at the same time became the need of the hour. Now, we are speaking about AI, artificial intelligence. Of course, artificial intelligence do have its opportunities and challenges. What I think, from my own point of view, I myself worked in the media when I was a postgraduate student, way back during the beginning of the 90s. I worked as a sub-editor in a media house. AI did not come at that point of time in a big way. But from my point of view of having worked in the media for some time, I can understand that media does not only mean garnering or gathering data. So Indian journalism, I'm sorry to say, with all the respect to the media houses and the media people over here, had been for some time been very blunt. Sorry for this. Because those who used to get into the journalism schools because of their conventional educations, these particular sharpness or the creative bent did not work the way in which it should have worked in these intelligent youngsters who came to join the media. Now, what actually they turned out from these journalism schools were information gatherers. And that information gathering was again filtered through an ideological, quote-unquote ideological bias, which the media house, the corporate organization used to impose in a subtle and delicate manner upon the reporters, upon the journalists. So what you are finally left with is a complete handicap. You gather information, put it in a sort of a discourse, and that discourse that you are trying to make in a very neutral and in a very faithful manner goes through an epistemic and discursive violence. You understand that what you have produced has gone through a discursive violence, but then you are helpless because you are committed to that particular house that you are working for. This tendency to some extent might change, perhaps. This is a presumption. This is just an expectation. Because once you depend upon AI, that particular data gathering, sifting through a huge quantum of data and finding out articles and storytelling, what kind of stories you are going to make, the expanse would increase, so you are not going to be data gatherers any longer. That can be done by the machine. What you require to do, you might be apprehensive of the fact that there might be a gap or a job displacement coming on your way. You are going to be off the track. You might not be employed any longer. No, brothers and sisters, that won't take place. What would actually take place is you require to have a different sort of a mindset. What as a data gatherer used to do, you are now turning out to be data analytics, more critical, more presence of mind and using your own thinkable capacities, the discursive violences that you had to encounter, those particular places you have to give more minds to. So the new schools of media, they are going to create more thinkable, intellectual journalists now. The lower order of data gathering would be performed only by the machine. This is one very important thing, and as Sanjay sir had actually pointed out, democratization is going to take place. The small houses who are just coming up as a startup companies in the media world, they would get facilitated in the competitive world of big honchos who are eating up these small particular groups. Because with AI, you can sift and sample enormous amount of data within a very less time. So your storytelling or the stories and the articles, which are a lot of manpower, lot of money required to be put in order to sift through, with these machines, this would actually be optimized. And not only that, you know about those who are computer savvy, you know about an SEO, search engine optimization technique. So what will happen is the kind of digital article that you prepare, the search engine optimization would make your article more clickable, more visible, and more easily accessible among the many number of articles that would come to your hand. So in that way, there would be a level playing field for different kind of houses, media houses. Competition rising, the very notion of ideological monopolies would slowly, as I think, dissolve and melt away. These are the positive things that we are expecting vis-a-vis the challenges that we require to be very cautious of when we allow AI to do our work in the media houses. And the challenges, as Professor Sanjay sir has actually pointed out, is to be very careful about the notion of deep fake. You can create fake news. Machines can create multiple number of unaccountable news articles, which might create, just like social media, might create a spiral effect upon the entire society and can be extremely deleterious for the health of the social order. This is something that we moral and ethical people require to be on our guard. So a greater challenge is coming to us. In one phrase, I can call it algorithmic accountability. That is what we require to be very cautious about. So the media houses are now going to prepare or create students for future generation of media who will not only be critical, but at the same time ethical, moral, socially responsible people, not allow machines to be used the way in which the Enlightenment edifices used to create wars like the First and the Second World War. With these words, I would be ending, but with another note, as sort of an advertisement, if you want to say, for KIIT. That is, we have actually from this year created the School of Liberal Studies, the School of Public Policy, the School of Leadership, and the School of Public Health. All these schools are going to hold hands together to work. We are introducing computer-based technical writing courses, which would be multidisciplinary. What does this mean? Media houses, along with the IT sectors like Capgemini, Deloitte, Accenture, have come forward to do workshop in our institution and help our teachers and help our students learn software-based writing skills. So all the chat GPTs and other things that you require to do, SEOs that you require to do, because of the dearth of knowledge in computer and software, you will be learning hands-on in this particular modular 3-credit courses in the liberal studies department. And of course, it is liberal in the form of computer science students can also use it. Digital humanities is coming in a big way in KIIT from 2025 session. So we are going to increase the employability quotient of our students, not only in the engineering and technology, but in the liberal studies schools as well. So that the students will be always already made by the time they come to the final semester for immediately engaging themselves or landing themselves in the job market. It is not only into academics that they are going, but they are going to actually spread into all different tiers and interstices of social employability skills. With this note, I would actually invite the future potential learners to come and join and test KIIT's Liberal Studies, Leadership, Public Policy schools. We are hand-holding with United Nations. In Italy, we are going to have a conclave. Our knowledge partner would be the United Nations from 2025. Thanking you all.